Hello there, and welcome to my channel. I'm so glad you found your way here today. There is a quiet conversation happening inside you right now, one you were never taught to hear. It runs between your stomach and your skull, along a pathway older than language, older than memory, older than the part of you that thinks of itself as you. And here is the first surprise. We tend to imagine the brain as the commander issuing orders downward to an obedient body. The truth runs the other way. Far more messages travel up from the gut to the brain than ever travel down. The gut is not waiting for instructions. It is reporting constantly on a world the conscious mind has not yet noticed. And before we begin, if these calm explorations are something you enjoy, consider liking and subscribing. It helps others find their way here too. Now let's begin. This upward flood of information shapes how you feel before you know why. The body speaks first, and the mind much later tries to explain what it already decided. To understand danger then, we must start not with thought, but with the quiet machinery beneath it. Picture a fine net of nerve cells woven through the entire length of your digestive tract, from the base of the throat to the very end of the line. It is not a few stray fibers. It is a living mesh, threaded into the walls of every loop and fold, sensing, signaling, deciding. Scientists have counted the neurons embedded in the human gut and arrived at a number near 500 million. That is more nerve cells than live in the spinal cord of a person. Enough that researchers gave this network a name of its own, the enteric nervous system, and acquired a nickname that has stuck for decades. They call it the second brain. It does not think in words or pictures, but it monitors, it remembers, and it reacts. When something is wrong below, this hidden brain knows long before the one in your head does. The feeling you cannot quite name, the unease that arrives without a cause, often begins in this dense and silent web. You carry a second mind inside you, and it has been watching the whole time. Consider a strange fact that unsettled the early scientists who first stumbled onto it. They found that the gut, when its connection to the brain is severed, does not fall still. It keeps working. The waves of muscle that move food along the careful timing of release and absorption, the whole orchestration of digestion continues, conducted entirely from within. Researchers studying this network confirmed that the enteric nervous system can operate independently, governing the gut's rhythms without a single instruction from the brain. No other organ system can do this. Cut the nerves to the heart, and it still beats, yes, but the gut goes further. It senses, it judges, it responds, all on its own authority. This is why some call it the only truly autonomous organ in the body, a brain that does not report to headquarters, because it does not need to. And it raises a quiet question worth holding on to. If the gut can act without the brain, then the warnings it sends are not borrowed wisdom passed down from above. They are its own. There is a single nerve in your body so long and so wandering that the ancient anatomists named it for its restlessness. Vagus, from the Latin word for wandering. It begins deep in the brainstem and meanders downward, branching to the throat, the heart, the lungs, and at last sprawling across the stomach and intestines like the roots of an old tree. This is the great cable of the gut and brain conversation, the physical line along which their quiet messages pass. When you feel a knot of dread when something turns over in your middle at bad news, much of that sensation is the vagus nerve carrying word from below to above. It is the longest of the cranial nerves, and it touches nearly every organ that keeps you alive. Sever it, and the two brains fall silent to each other. Soothe it, and the whole body can be coaxed toward calm. The wandering nerve is how your gut whispers to your mind, and the line, it turns out, runs mostly in one direction. We assumed the brain was talking. Mostly, it is listening. When researchers counted the individual fibers within the vagus nerve, and sorted them by the direction they carry information, they found something that quietly overturns the old picture. Around 80 to 90% of those fibers are sensory. They run upward from the body to the brain, not the reverse. For every command the brain sends down to the gut sends roughly 9 reports back up. Think about what that means. The bulk of this great nerve exists not to control the body, but to be informed by it. The brain is in large part an organ receiving news from below, sifting a steady stream of updates about the state of things deep inside. Your sense of how you feel, vaguely well or vaguely off, rests on this upward traffic you never consciously notice. The body is not the brain's instrument. On this line at least, the body does most of the talking and the brain leans in to hear. Have you ever walked into a room and felt before any thought formed that something was wrong? That feeling has a physical address. It does not begin as an idea that then troubles your stomach. It often begins in the stomach as a real and measurable change, which only afterward rises into awareness as a vague unease. The gut shifts first. Its muscles tighten, its rhythm falters. Blood begins to move differently through its walls, and these alterations are detected and sent upward before the conscious mind has named a single cause. By the time you think the word wrong, your body has been saying it for a moment already. This is why the feeling can seem to come from nowhere. It does not come from nowhere. It comes from below, from a layer of sensing faster than thought and quieter than speech. The unease you cannot explain is not irrational. It is simply earlier than reason, a report filed before the words to describe it had time to arrive. Serotonin. We file it under the mind, the molecule of mood and calm, the thing antidepressants reach for. So it comes as a quiet shock to learn where most of it actually lives. Not in the brain, in the gut. Around 90% of the body's serotonin is produced not between your ears, but in the lining of your digestive tract, manufactured by specialized cells scattered through the gut wall. Down there, it does the work of an ordinary chemical messenger, helping to move food along and signaling when something is amiss. But its abundance in the gut tells a deeper story about where the chemistry of feeling truly originates. The same molecule that shapes whether the mind feels bright or heavy is by the numbers overwhelmingly a creature of the belly. When people speak of a feeling rising from the gut, they are closer to the literal truth than they know. The substances that color your inner weather are brewed in large part in the very place you feel your dread and your delight. How fine is the gut's sense of danger? Finer than almost anything else in the body. Tucked into the lining of your intestine are sensory cells so exquisitely tuned that they can register the presence of a single threatening molecule among the churn of everything you have eaten. These are the body's frontline tasters, sentinels, stationed at the border where the outside world enters the inside. Scientists studying these cells, sometimes called neuropod cells, found that they can detect specific nutrients and harmful compounds with remarkable precision, then pass that information almost instantly to the nervous system. One wrong molecule, and the alarm is already moving. This is sensing at the very edge of what a body can do. A vigilance, operating below taste, below smell, below any awareness you possess. While you chew and swallow and think of other things, these cells are reading the chemistry of your meal with a care no conscious attention could match. The gut does not wait to feel sick. It checks every arrival at the door. For a long time, scientists believed the gut spoke to the brain slowly through hormones drifting in the bloodstream, a chemical letter that takes minutes to arrive. Then they looked closer at those sentinel cells in the gut wall and found something that changed the picture entirely. The cells do not only release hormones, they reach out and form true synapses. The same direct connections that neurons use to speak to one another, wiring themselves straight to the nerves that climb to the brain. Researchers traced this link and measured its speed. A danger signal can cross from the gut to the brainstem in well under a second faster than a hormone could ever travel. This is not a letter. It is a phone line hardwired an instant. The gut is not waiting for chemistry to carry its message across the body. It is plugged directly into the nervous system, able to ring the alarm in the time it takes to blink. What you feel as a sudden inner lurch is a signal that has already arrived. There is a moment when you have eaten something that has turned, that arrives before any thought. A wave of wrongness, a loosening, a quiet refusal rising in your middle. You did not decide to feel it. The gut detected the toxin and began its response while your conscious mind was still elsewhere. The sensory cells read the threat, the signal raced upward, and a region of the brainstem began assembling the feeling of nausea, all of it unfolding beneath awareness. By the time you notice the queasiness, the body has already judged the food and started to act against it. This is the gut working as it was built, to work as a guardian that does not consult you before deciding. It does not wait for you to recognize the danger, because waiting could cost you. The sickness you feel is not a malfunction or an overreaction. It is a verdict reached in silence, delivered to your awareness only after the case was already closed. Most learning takes repetition. You hear a name many times before it sticks, practice a skill for hours before it holds. But there is one kind of learning the body does in a single try, and it does it for a reason. If a particular food makes you violently ill, you may find that the taste of it turns your stomach for years afterward, sometimes for the rest of your life. After just one bad encounter, psychologists call this conditioned taste aversion, and it is among the fastest and most durable forms of learning known. One exposure, no repetition needed. The body decides with absolute conviction that this flavor means danger, and it does not forget. The logic is brutal and ancient. A creature that needed several poisonings to learn its lesson would not survive to learn it. So the gut and brain together built a shortcut, a memory carved in a single stroke. The dish you cannot face anymore, decades after one terrible night, is that ancient safeguard still keeping a promise it made to protect you. Here is the strange part, the detail that reveals just how deep this system runs. The aversion forms even when you know with full rational certainty that the food was innocent. Suppose you eat an unfamiliar dish, and hours later a passing virus entirely unrelated makes you ill. Your reasoning mind understands the food did nothing, and yet the next time you encounter that taste, your stomach may still turn. Researchers have documented this again and again. The aversion settles in regardless of what you consciously believe about the true cause. This tells us the learning does not live in the thinking mind at all. It lives lower in a layer that does not consult logic and cannot be argued out of its conclusion. You can know better and still feel the revulsion, because the part of you that learned the lesson was never listening to reason in the first place. It is a humbling thing to discover a verdict inside yourself that your own intelligence cannot overturn. You are not alone inside your own body. Lining your intestines in numbers, almost beyond imagining, lives a vast community of bacteria and other microbes, trillions of them, an entire population, sharing the space you think of as simply yours. This is the gut microbiome, and it weighs about as much as the brain itself. For most of history, we thought of these microbes as passive lodgers, helping a little with digestion and otherwise minding their own business. We were wrong. They are participants in the conversation. The compounds they produce drift into the gut's signaling, shaping the very messages it sends upward to the brain. The warnings you feel, the moods that rise and fall are influenced in part by this invisible multitude living within you. They are not you exactly, and yet they help decide how you feel. The next time a vague unease moves through you, consider that some part of it may originate not in your cells at all, but in the quiet chemistry of the countless lives you carry. It sounds almost like a fable that the bacteria in your belly could change your mood. But the evidence is real, and it is growing. Certain species living in the gut manufacture or trigger the production of the same chemical messengers the brain uses to regulate feeling, including molecules tied to calm, to alertness, and to the stress response. Some gut bacteria produce compounds related to serotonin and other neuroactive substances, which can influence signals traveling to the brain. In studies, changing the bacterial mix in an animal's gut shifted its behavior in measurable ways, making it more anxious or more settled. The microbes are not merely living in you. They are in a small and steady way helping to tune your inner state. Researchers still aren't certain exactly how far this influence reaches in humans, and they are careful not to overclaim, but the direction is clear enough to take seriously. Some of what you feel as your own mood may be a chemistry written in part by the smallest residents of your own body. What if fear itself could be turned up or down from the gut? In careful experiments, scientists raised animals in conditions that altered their gut microbiome, stripping it away or changing its makeup, and then watched how those animals responded to threat. The results were striking. Animals with a disrupted or absent microbiome showed changed fear responses, sometimes more anxious, sometimes oddly fearless, their reactions to danger reshaped from the inside. Restoring the microbes early enough could often restore the normal pattern. The community of bacteria in the gut, it turns out, helps calibrate the very intensity of an animal's alarm. This is not a small finding. It suggests that the threshold at which a body decides to be afraid is set in part by who lives inside it. Researchers are still working out how much of this carries over to people, and they hold the question open with care. But the possibility lingers. The courage or caution we think of as our own temperament may rest a little on a population we never chose and cannot see. We use the phrase so casually, a gut feeling. We mean a hunch, an intuition, something we sense without knowing why, and we assume the gut in it is just a figure of speech. Have you ever wondered if the words might be more literal than that? They are. When researchers measure what happens in the body during one of these wordless intuitions, they find real physical changes in the gut, shifts in its activity and signaling that occur before the conscious mind reaches its conclusion. The feeling is not metaphor borrowed and stretched. It is a description of an event that can be detected and recorded, a true physiological happening in the place the language points to. Across centuries and across languages, people reached for the belly to name this kind of knowing, and they were not being poetic. They were being accurate with an accuracy they could not have measured. The old phrase was right all along. When something is felt in the gut, something is, in fact, occurring there. You have a sense most people have never heard named. Not sight, not hearing, not touch, but a quieter perception turned inward. A steady awareness of the body's own interior. The scientific word for it is interoception, the sense by which you feel your heartbeat, the fullness of your lungs, the churn of your stomach, the rising of hunger, or the settling of calm. It is always running, beneath the noise of the outer senses, gathering reports from inside. Most of the time you ignore it the way you ignore the feeling of your clothes against your skin. But it is there, the channel through which the gut's warnings reach awareness at all. Without interoception, you would not feel dread tighten your middle or unease move through your chest. You would be cut off from your own depths. This inner sense is the doorway between the body that knows and the mind that thinks. And most of us walk through it 1,000 times a day without ever noticing the door. Some people feel their own heartbeat more accurately than others. It sounds like a small and useless talent until you see what it predicts. Researchers test this by asking people to count their heartbeats without touching their pulse, then checking the count against the real rhythm. Those who read their bodies more accurately, it turns out, tend to perform better on certain intuitive judgments, including decisions made under uncertainty where the right answer cannot be reasoned out in time. The body's signals, when clearly heard, become a kind of guidance. People with sharper interoception in studies of risky choices often did better, as though their bodies were advising them, and they were able to listen. The skill is not magic and not infallible, but it suggests that intuition is not a gift some are simply born with. It may be in part a matter of how clearly a person can hear the quiet broadcast already playing inside them. The wise hunch may belong to those who never stopped listening to their own depths. It is not only the gut that speaks. Deep below awareness, your heart is reporting too, sending the brain a continuous account of its rhythm, its pressure, its pace, woven together with the messages climbing from the belly. The brain receives both streams at once, an unbroken flow of status updates from the body's core that you almost never consciously perceive. These reports shape your inner state in ways you do not detect. A slightly faster heart, a subtle change in the gut, and your mood tilts before you can say why. The brain is forever reading these signals and adjusting like a captain consulting instruments below the deck. You feel only the result, the vague sense of ease or unease, never the data behind it. Your conscious life floats on top of this hidden traffic, carried by it, colored by it, mostly unaware of it. The self you experience as solid and continuous is really a surface, and just beneath it, the body never stops murmuring the truth of how things stand. Where does an emotion actually begin? We tend to think the feeling comes first, and the body merely follows the racing heart, a consequence of fear already felt. But a long line of research suggests the order is stranger than that. Often the body moves first, and the emotion assembles itself afterward from what the body is doing. The heart quickens, the stomach tightens, the breath shortens, and the brain reads these bodily changes, and only then constructs the feeling we call fear, or excitement or dread. The physical reaction is not the echo of the emotion, it is closer to the raw material from which the emotion is built. Think of the pounding chest and the knotted gut as an early draft, written by the body before the mind composes the final feeling. This is why the same quickening can become fear in one moment and thrill in another depending on how it is read. The emotion is the story. The body wrote the first sentence. That fluttering in your stomach before something frightening or important, the sensation we call butterflies, is one of the most familiar feelings in the human body, and one of the most misunderstood. It feels delicate, almost whimsical. What is actually happening is anything but. When the body senses a challenge ahead, it begins to pull blood away from the digestive organs and send it toward the muscles readying you to act. The gut, suddenly receiving less of its usual supply, registers the change, and that altered sensation rises into awareness as the light hollow flutter you know so well. The butterflies are blood in retreat, leaving the belly to arm the body for whatever comes. There is nothing whimsical about it. It is the opening move of an ancient survival response felt as a tickle. The next time your stomach flutters before you step onto a stage or into a hard conversation, you are feeling your body quietly preparing for battle, just as it has prepared its ancestors for millions of years. Digestion is expensive. Breaking down a meal demands a real share of the body's blood, energy, and attention, a slow and costly labor that the body is happy to perform only when it feels safe. Let danger appear, and that calculation changes in an instant. Faced with a threat, the body does something quietly ruthless. It slows or halts digestion altogether, diverting the energy and blood that were nourishing the gut and sending them instead to the heart, the lungs, the muscles, the systems that will carry you out of harm's way. The meal can wait, survival cannot. This is why fear can leave you feeling hollow or unsettled in the middle, why the appetite vanishes the moment real dread arrives. The body has made a decision, coldly and without consulting you, that there is no time now for the work of feeding yourself. Everything is held in suspense, the slow business of living paused until the threat has passed and it is safe once more to digest. There is a switch inside you older than your species that flips the body in a single moment from rest to readiness. Physiologists named it the fight or flight response, and it is the master control behind everything the gut does in the face of danger. When it fires, a cascade of signals floods the body in seconds. The heart accelerates, the airways widen, the pupils open, the muscles tense, and digestion is set aside. All of it unfolds automatically beneath any decision you could make, governed by a branch of the nervous system you do not command. The gut's churning unease, the vanished appetite, the hollow flutter, are all expressions of this single ancient switch thrown deep within you. It does not ask permission, and it does not wait for thought. It was built to act faster than thought, in a world where hesitation meant death. You carry that switch, still unchanged, ready to fire at the first hint of threat, exactly as it fired in the bodies that came before you. The switch was built for lions. It fires now for emails. This is the quiet trouble at the heart of the body's alarm system. The fight or flight response evolved to meet physical danger, the predator in the grass, the rival raising a fist, threats that could be fought or fled. But it cannot tell the difference between that kind of danger and a purely modern one. A harsh message, a looming deadline, a difficult conversation, a number on a screen, and the same ancient cascade fires the heart racing and the gut clenching as if a beast had appeared. There is nothing to fight and nowhere to run, yet the body readies you for both. The unease in your stomach before a meeting is the very same response your ancestors felt before a leopard aimed now at a threat that cannot touch you. The system is not broken. It is simply old, doing faithfully what it was made to do in a world that no longer matches the one that shaped it. The fight or flight response was meant to be brief, a surge, an action, and then release the body, returning to calm once the danger had passed. That was the design. Modern life rarely allows the second half. When stress does not lift, when the worry stretches across weeks and months with no clear end, the body never fully stands down. The gut is held in a low and lasting state of alarm. Its rhythm subtly disturbed, its signaling altered, simmering quietly long after any real threat has gone. Researchers have linked this prolonged stress to a range of digestive troubles, from discomfort to genuine disorder, the gut paying the price for an alarm that will not switch off. The system built to save you in a moment was never meant to run for a season. Held on too long, the same response that protects begins to wear. The unease that lingers in your middle through a hard stretch of life is the gut faithfully braced for a danger that will not arrive and will not leave. How did two organs so far apart understand each other so well? The answer is that they were never speaking different languages to begin with. The gut and the brain communicate using the same chemical vocabulary. The very molecules the brain uses to think and feel are also produced and read by the gut. Serotonin, dopamine, the messengers of mood and motivation and stress, all appear in both places, doing related work at either end of the body. This shared chemistry is why the conversation between them is so seamless and so deep. They are not translating across a barrier. They are fluent in a common tongue written into both from the start. When your mood shifts your digestion, or your digestion shifts your mood, It is not a strange crossing between unrelated systems. It is two parts of one body, built from the same materials, speaking the same words. The line between gut and brain was always thinner than we imagined, because in the language that matters most, they were never truly separate. Most of your body's defense does not live in your blood or your skin. It lives in your gut. A remarkable share of the immune system is stationed along the digestive tract, clustered in the lining and the tissue beneath it, standing guard at the busiest border in the body, the place where the outside world floods in with every meal. These immune cells are sentinels sampling what passes, watching for invaders ready to raise an alarm the moment something dangerous appears. When they detect a threat, they do not stay silent. They release signals that ripple outward, alerting the rest of the body and reaching through the gut's nervous wiring all the way to the brain. The gut is not only digesting, it is defending, and it is reporting. Running a vast surveillance operation, you never feel directly. So much of your protection is concentrated in this one quiet place, because this is where the danger most often enters. The gut stands watch at the gate, the first to know when something has crossed the line. You feel tired and heavy and low, and you search for a reason in your life, in your thoughts, in your circumstances. Sometimes the reason is lower than all of that. When the gut becomes inflamed, when its immune defense is aroused and active, it sends signals upward that reach the brain and shape how you feel, often bringing a weariness and a flatness of mood that seem to have no cause. Researchers studying this link found that inflammation in the body, including the gut, can produce what they call sickness behavior, the urge to withdraw, to rest, to feel subdued, a state the body enters to conserve itself while it heals. The low mood is not a failure of will or a flaw of character. It can be a message from an inflamed gut telling the whole system to slow down. This is humbling and in a way freeing. Some of what feels like a heaviness of spirit may begin in the body, a physical alarm wearing the disguise of a mood. Before you understand a danger, you may already have smelled it. The nose is wired with unusual directness to the oldest, most instinctive parts of the brain, the regions tied to emotion and memory, and alarm bypassing much of the slow machinery of conscious thought. This is why a scent can trigger a feeling before you have any idea what you are reacting to. The body catches the smell of smoke, of rot, of something subtly wrong, and the alarm begins to sound, while the thinking mind is still searching for words. Researchers have shown that people can respond to certain smells, even ones too faint to consciously identify, with measurable changes in their bodies. The gut and nervous system reacting to a warning the mind never registered. You may have felt this, a sudden unease in a place, a wrongness you could not explain. That was your nose reading a danger and reporting it straight to the ancient core of you. The body smelled the threat first, and only later let you in on what it knew. Lift a glass of milk that has turned, and your body recoils before you have decided anything. The nose catches it first, that faint sourness, the off note that does not belong, and a wave of refusal rises in you almost instantly. This is the nose and gut working as partners, an ancient pairing built to keep you from eating what could harm you. The nose samples the air above the food and reads its chemistry, while the gut stands ready to reject what slips past. Together they form a layered defense, one warning before the food reaches your mouth, the other prepared to expel it if it does. The disgust you feel at spoiled food is not a delicate preference. It is a survival reflex, sharp and fast, refined over countless generations who lived and died by their ability to tell good food from dangerous. That instant turning away, that wrinkle of revulsion, is your body doing exactly what it was built to do, refusing a threat your conscious mind had not yet even examined. Why does disgust exist at all? It is an unpleasant feeling, this curl of revulsion, and yet It is universal, present in every human culture, recognizable on every human face. Many researchers believe disgust began as a guardian of the gut. An emotion evolved specifically to keep us from consuming what could poison or infect us. The things that most reliably trigger it, rot, waste, decay, contamination, are precisely the things that carried disease and death to our ancestors. Disgust is the feeling that pulled them back from the dangerous bite, the spoiled meat, the tainted water, and so it pulled their lineages forward into survival. What feels like a simple aversion is in fact one of the oldest protective instincts we carry, a no spoken by the body before the mind weighs in. The revulsion that rises in you at something foul is not a quirk or a weakness. It is an inheritance, a warning system written into your feelings, still doing the work it was made for in a world its makers never saw. Watch a face meet something repulsive, and you see a precise and ancient choreography. The nose wrinkles, the upper lip lifts, the eyes narrow, the whole face seeming to close itself against the world. We read it as pure expression, a signal of feeling. It is also, researchers have found, a piece of physical defense. The wrinkled nose and narrowed passages reduce the air drawn in, limiting how much of a foul or dangerous substance reaches the body, while the lifted lip and tightened features help shield the openings of the face. The expression is not only telling others how you feel, it is actively protecting you, sealing the body against contamination in the very moment of revulsion. This is the quiet genius of an old adaptation. A single response that both warns the tribe and guards the individual. The face you make at something rotten was shaped to do real work, narrowing the gateways of the body against a threat, a reflex of self-defense disguised as a fleeting look of distaste. A baby only hours old who has learned nothing of the world already knows to refuse one thing. Offer a newborn something bitter, and the small face contracts, the mouth pulls back, the whole body recoils in unmistakable rejection. No one taught this. It was there from the first moment, written into the infant, before any experience could shape it. Researchers studying newborns have documented this innate aversion to bitterness, present at birth, a reflexive turning away that needs no learning at all. The reason reaches deep into our history. In the natural world, bitterness often marks the presence of toxins, the alkaloids and poisons that plants use to defend themselves. A creature born already wary of bitter tastes had a head start on survival, a poison filter installed before it ever encountered a poison. The baby's grimace at a bitter drop is one of the oldest pieces of wisdom the body carries, a caution inherited rather than learned, the gut's defense, beginning before the child has lived a single full day. There is a reason the body fears bitter, and it is written across the living world. Plants cannot run from those who would eat them, so over millions of years, they evolved another defense, filling themselves with bitter compounds, the alkaloids and toxins that punish and poison the creatures that try. Bitterness in nature is frequently a chemical warning, a flavor that announces danger. Animals that learn to heed it survive to pass on their caution, and so the link between bitter and dangerous was carved deep into how we taste. This is why bitterness registers not as a neutral flavor, but as a quiet alarm, why we must often learn to tolerate the bitter foods we now enjoy, coffee and dark greens and the like, overriding an instinct that first said no. The aversion was never arbitrary. It is the long shadow of an evolutionary arms race between plants defending themselves and animals deciding what was safe to eat. Your tongue still carries the verdict of that ancient contest, reading bitterness as the body's old word for beware. You taste with your tongue, so you have always believed. But scattered through the lining of your gut, far below the mouth, in places no flavor could ever consciously reach, sit, taste receptors, of the very same kind that scents sweet and bitter on your tongue. They are real, and they are working, sampling the chemistry of what passes through the intestine long after the meal has been swallowed. The gut, it turns out, tastes too silently and constantly, in a way you can never feel. These hidden receptors do not produce the experience of flavor. They produce decisions, reading what arrives and helping the body respond to it. A bitter compound detected deep in the gut can trigger reactions that affect how you absorb, how you feel, how your body prepares. The sense you thought ended at the back of your throat continues all the way down, an unconscious tasting happening in the dark. Your body is sampling its food in places you will never know about, judging each mouthful long after you have stopped paying attention. What are those buried taste receptors actually for? Not for pleasure, since you cannot feel them, but for judgment. Stationed through the gut, they read the chemistry of what passes and help the body make one of its oldest decisions: what to take in and what to turn away. When they detect certain compounds, they can trigger the release of hormones that shape appetite and digestion, or set in motion responses that move a suspected threat along and out. The sweet receptors may help the body prepare to absorb a useful sugar. The bitter ones may help it slow down and guard against a possible toxin. All of this happens beneath awareness, a continuous sorting of friend from foe carried out in the dark of the gut. The body is not passively receiving whatever you swallow. It is examining each arrival and deciding its fate, accepting some, rejecting others, all without a flicker of conscious thought. The meal you finished an hour ago is still being judged, molecule by molecule, by a sense of taste you will never feel. We treat it as the body failing this violent and miserable act, something gone wrong that we wish to stop. Seen clearly, it is the opposite. Vomiting is one of the body's most precisely coordinated defenses, a reflex assembled over millions of years to expel a threat before it can do greater harm. Far from a malfunction, it is a feat of timing, drawing together the diaphragm, the abdominal muscles, the stomach and the throat in a single forceful sequence, all orchestrated to drive the danger out fast. The body even closes off the airway in the same instant, protecting the lungs as it acts. Every part plays its role on cue. When you have eaten something poisonous, this reflex may be what saves you, ridding the body of the toxin before it can be absorbed. The misery of it disguises its purpose. What feels like the body breaking down is the body defending itself with grim efficiency, doing something hard and unpleasant because the alternative was worse. It is protection wearing the face of distress. Such a complex defense needs a conductor, and the body has one tucked into the brainstem. There, in an ancient region near the base of the skull, sits the control center for the entire act of vomiting, a coordinator that receives the alarms and orchestrates the response. It gathers signals from many sources at once, from the gut detecting a toxin, from the blood carrying word of a poison, from the inner ear, from sights and smells, weighing them all and deciding when to act. When it gives the command, it fires the precise sequence that drives the threat out, timing every muscle in turn. This center is so essential and so old that it sits among the most primitive structures of the brain, the parts we share with creatures far down the tree of life. It does not consult the thinking mind. It acts on its own authority, triggered by danger, executing a defense that predates thought entirely. Deep in your brainstem sits a small and ancient guardian, always listening for the signals of poison, ready to expel what could kill you. Why should a calm car ride or a gentle boat make you so wretchedly ill? Nothing has poisoned you, nothing threatens you, and yet the body responds as though it has been. One leading explanation is strange and revealing. When you move in a vehicle, your inner ear senses motion while your eyes fixed on a still interior report stillness, and these two reports contradict each other. The brain, faced with such a mismatch, may interpret it the way it would interpret the disorienting effects of certain poisons, which scramble the senses in just this manner. Reading the confusion as a sign of poisoning the body does what it does for poison. It makes you sick. Motion sickness, by this account, is an ancient defense fired by mistake, the body trying to expel a toxin that was never there. Researchers still aren't fully certain this is the whole story, and they hold the question open. But it offers a haunting picture of a survival reflex so old and so literal that the gentle sway of a ship can fool it into sounding the alarm. Here is the quiet irony hidden inside seasickness. The very machinery built to save you from poison is the machinery that makes you miserable on the water. The brainstem center that orchestrates vomiting, the ancient guardian against toxins, is wired to receive signals from the inner ear, the organ of balance. When that organ sends confusing reports, the sway and pitch of a vessel registering against a steady horizon, the signals reach the same guardian and can rouse it to act. The system has no way to know that a rolling deck is harmless. It only knows that the inputs resemble the chaos of poisoning, and so it responds as it was built to respond. A defense that protected your ancestors against tainted food is turned by the simple motion of a boat against you. There is something almost poignant in it. A body so devoted to your survival that it grows sick trying to protect you from a danger that does not exist. The ship has done nothing. The old guardian, faithful and literal, has simply been deceived. The body does not always wait for the threat to arrive. Sometimes the mere expectation of it is enough. People undergoing certain harsh treatments have been known to feel sick before a single drop enters them. The nausea rising at the sight of the clinic, the smell of the room, the simple knowledge of what is coming. Researchers studying patients receiving chemotherapy documented this clearly. A form of sickness that begins in anticipation, triggered by the surroundings and the expectation, rather than by anything physical. The body, having learned to associate these cues with illness, starts the response in advance, bracing for a harm that has not yet come. This reveals something quietly profound about the gut's alarm system. It is not only a detector of present danger, it is a predictor capable of firing on the strength of memory and expectation alone. The unease you feel before a dreaded thing, the stomach turning at a mere prospect, is the body reaching forward into the future, preparing for a threat it has learned to see coming long before it arrives. A room can make you ill, not through anything in the air but through what your body remembers happening there. If you once fell sick in a particular place, your gut may learn to associate that place itself with illness, so that returning to it or even picturing it stirs a faint nausea with no present cause. The body has bound the feeling to the setting, and the setting alone can now summon it. This is the same swift, durable learning that fixes a food aversion after a single bad meal extended outward to a whole environment. The gut does not distinguish carefully between the poison and the place where the poison was met. It remembers them together, and it warns you of both. Have you ever felt your stomach tighten on returning somewhere a hard thing once happened, with no reason you could name? That may be this ancient learning at work, the body keeping a map of where it suffered and quietly warning you each time you cross back onto familiar and painful ground. Fear does not stay in the mind. It reaches straight into the gut and changes how fast things move there, sometimes hurrying the digestive tract into urgency, sometimes bringing it to a near standstill. This is not vague or poetic. It is measurable, a real shift in the pace of the gut that researchers can record. When the fight or flight response fires, it reaches the muscles of the digestive tract and alters their rhythm, and the direction of that change depends on the threat and the body. For some, fear speeds the lower gut towards sudden release. For others, it freezes digestion entirely, leaving food to sit. Either way, the emotion has become a physical event in the belly, the feeling translated directly into motion or stillness. This is why fear can send a person rushing for a bathroom or leave them unable to eat for hours. The gut is listening to your fear and responding with its muscles, turning what you feel into something the body literally does, faster or slower on command from an alarm you did not choose to sound. It is one of the body's least dignified responses and one of its oldest. Under extreme fright, the bowels can empty suddenly and beyond control, a reaction that has embarrassed people across all of history. Yet it is not random, and it is not simply a breakdown. One long-held explanation sees it as an ancient survival reflex, the body shedding excess weight to make itself lighter and faster for the flight that terror is preparing it to take. A creature about to run for its life has no use for a full gut, and emptying it quickly may once have offered a real edge in escape. There may also be a grimmer logic, a body made less appealing or less burdened in a moment of mortal danger. The reflex persists in us, unchanged, firing now in moments of terror that no flight could answer. What feels like humiliation is in fact a deep inheritance, the body doing in fear exactly what it did for the ancestors who survived their own moments of mortal dread, lightening itself for a run. Dread has a feeling, and the feeling is physical. When you sense something bad approaching, the gut tightens, drawing in on itself, clenching the way you might brace your body before an expected blow. This is no accident of sensation. It is the same protective tensing that runs through the muscles in the face of threat, reaching into the gut and gripping it. The body, anticipating harm, hardens itself, and the belly hardens along with the rest. That knot you feel in your stomach before bad news, before a confrontation, before a fall, is the muscle of the gut bracing a defense as instinctive as flinching from a raised hand. We speak of a sinking feeling, a knot, a clench, and each phrase points at the same real event, the gut tightening in dread. The body does not separate the emotional threat from the physical one. It braces for both in the same way, gathering itself against the harm it senses coming, and you feel that bracing as the unmistakable grip of dread in your core. Ask those who have faced real danger again and again, and many will tell you the same thing. The body knows first. Soldiers describe a sense that something is wrong before they can say what. A tightening, a stillness, a pull to move that arrives ahead of any conscious reason. Experienced athletes speak of reading a play or sensing a moment through the body before thought catches up. This is not mysticism. It is the gut and the body's deeper senses recognizing a pattern that the conscious mind has not yet assembled into words. Years of exposure have trained the body to detect the faint signs of danger or opportunity, and it reports them as a feeling rather than a thought, because feeling is faster. The knowing comes first, because the body's channels are quicker than reason. Those who live close to risk learn to trust this, to heed the signal before the explanation arrives, because in their world, the explanation often arrives too late. The body, trained by experience, speaks before the mind can. What we call intuition may be at its root the body, recognizing something it has seen before. When an expert senses that a situation is off, when a seasoned nurse feels a patient turning for the worse, before any reading confirms it, the feeling often outpaces the reasoning entirely. Researchers who study expertise suggest this is pattern recognition operating below awareness. The accumulated experience of years detecting a familiar shape and signaling it through the body before the conscious mind can name what it noticed. The gut feeling in this light is not a message from nowhere. It is deep knowledge surfacing in the only language fast enough to carry it, the language of sensation. The expert cannot always say why they know, because the knowing skipped the step of words. This is why intuition tends to grow more trustworthy with experience, and why a novice's hunch is worth less than a master's. The feeling in the gut may be the mind's vast hidden learning speaking through the body, because it has not yet found its way into thought. Where does a lifetime of learning go? Not all of it lives in conscious memory, in facts you could recite. Much of it settles deeper into a bodily sense of when something is right and when something is wrong. A felt knowledge you carry without being able to explain. The craftsman who feels that a joint is sound, the driver who senses a road turning dangerous, the teacher who knows a room before a word is spoken, all are drawing on experience that has sunk below thought and become sensation. The years did not vanish. They were stored in a form the body can read instantly, as a quiet yes or a quiet no rising in the gut. This is one of the most efficient things a body can do, compressing vast experience into a feeling that needs no deliberation. It is why mastery so often looks like ease, the hard-won knowledge surfacing as a simple sense of how things should be. Within you, your own experience is gathering this way, turning slowly into a wisdom you will feel before you can speak. Threat does not announce itself in only one place. It arrives across the body at once, and two of its first witnesses are the gut and the skin. In the same instant that your stomach tightens, your skin may prickle, the fine hairs rising, a cool wave moving over your arms or the back of your neck. These are not separate reactions happening to bump into each other. They are two faces of a single alarm fired together by the same surge of the nervous system that readies you for danger. The skin responds because the ancient fight or flight response reaches it too, contracting tiny muscles, raising the hairs, sharpening its sensitivity to the world. So the gut and the skin sound together, an alarm rung in two places at once. You feel the threat in your belly and on your surface in the very same moment, the body lighting up across its whole expanse. The danger touches all of you at once, and the gut and the skin are simply where you happen to notice it first. That feeling of the skin crawling, of something creeping over you when nothing is there, is one of the body's strangest and most primal sensations. It tends to arrive in moments of unease, of being watched, of sensing a wrongness you cannot place, and it often comes hand in hand with a quiet alarm in the gut. The crawling is the skin's branch of the fear response. The small muscles at the base of each hair, contracting, raising the hairs, and producing that creeping electric awareness across the surface of the body. When the gut senses threat, the skin frequently joins it, and together they create the full sensation of dread made physical. There is an old purpose buried in it. Raised hair once made our ancestors and their animal kin look larger and more formidable to a predator, a bluff written into the skin. The crawling you feel is the ghost of that defense, firing still the skin and the gut, alarmed together your whole body, quietly bracing against a danger it has sensed before you. How fast does fear travel through you? Faster than you can think. When a frightening signal registers, the body releases a surge of stress chemicals, and these messengers reach the gut within seconds, carried by the nerves and the blood to the very core of you. Almost at once, the gut begins to change its rhythm, shifting its muscles, tightening, its whole behavior altered by the chemical alarm now flooding through it. This is why the feeling can seem instantaneous, the bad news and the sinking stomach arriving together with no perceptible gap between them. The speed is the point. The body's defenses were built for moments where every fraction of a second mattered. And so the line from fright to gut was made as short and as fast as possible. You do not have to wait to feel afraid in your body, because the chemistry of fear reaches your depths almost the instant the alarm is sounded. The gut is among the first to know, flooded within seconds, responding before the mind has finished, understanding what frightened it. Stress reaches deeper into the gut than its muscles and its rhythm. It reaches the wall itself. The gut is lined by a barrier of extraordinary delicacy, a single layer of cells that decides what may pass from the gut into the body and what must be kept out, one of the most important borders you possess. Under sustained stress, the hormone cortisol can change this barrier, altering how tightly its cells hold together and shifting the gut's very gatekeeping. The border that is normally so careful can become more permeable, letting through what it would usually refuse. Researchers have traced this effect, watching stress loosen the seams of the gut wall. It is a quiet and consequential thing, that a feeling in the mind can reach down and change the structure of a barrier deep in the body. The pressure you carry does not stay above the neck. It travels to the gut and touches the most fundamental decision the gut makes: what to let in weakening under strain, a border that was built to stay firm. When that delicate border loosens, the consequences ripple outward. A gut wall that has become too permeable can allow substances to slip through that the body would normally keep contained, and the immune system, finding these where they should not be, raises an alarm. Signals of inflammation flood into the bloodstream, traveling through the body and reaching in time the brain. What began as a weakening of a barrier becomes a body-wide warning, a low and lasting alarm sounded from within. Researchers studying this link between a compromised gut barrier and inflammation are careful, for much remains uncertain, and the science is still unfolding. But the outline is real enough to take seriously. A border worn down by stress can become a source of warning signals that color how the whole body feels, including the brain. This is the gut's alarm system, turned in a sense against itself. The barrier meant to protect, now leaking the very signals of threat. It is a reminder that the body's defenses, pushed too hard, can begin to sound alarms of their own making. Consider how hard the gut's job is. It must hold a border against a churning, abrasive, chemically hostile world, the constant passage of food and acid, and the trillions of microbes it houses. No surface could withstand that for long without wearing away. So the gut does something remarkable. It rebuilds itself completely every few days. The lining of your intestine is among the fastest renewing tissues in the entire body. Its cells replaced on a cycle of just days, the whole surface made new again and again throughout your life. While the skin takes weeks to renew and bone takes years, the gut wall is forever reconstructing itself at extraordinary speed. This is the price of standing at the busiest and most dangerous border in the body. The wall cannot last, so it is continually remade, an act of repair so swift and so constant that the gut you have today is in its lining only days old. Deep within you, this quiet rebuilding never stops, the border against the world renewed before it can fail. That ceaseless rebuilding is not only repair, it is watchfulness. A tissue that renews itself every few days is a tissue under constant inspection, its cells continually made, and replaced, the damaged ones cleared away before they can become a lasting problem. In this rapid turnover lies a kind of vigilance, the gut sweeping itself clean of harm again and again, refusing to let injury accumulate at its most exposed border. The speed that makes the renewal possible also makes the gut quick to recover from insult, able to heal a wound or shed a damaged stretch of lining faster than almost any other part of you. But this same rapid renewal carries a cost and a risk, for tissue that divides so quickly must be tightly controlled. And where that control falters, trouble can begin. The gut walks a fine line, rebuilding fast enough to survive its punishing work, watchful enough to keep the rebuilding orderly. Its constant renewal is the body's answer to a constant assault, a vigilance written into the very pace at which it remakes itself. Press a pin to your finger and you know exactly where it landed. The skin reports pain with sharp precision, mapping each hurt to a clear point. The gut does not work this way at all. When something goes wrong inside the digestive tract, the pain that rises is dull, diffuse, hard to pin down, a vague ache spreading across the middle without a clear center. You can feel that something hurts deep within you, yet struggle to say exactly where. This is not a failure of the body, but a difference of design. The gut is wired with fewer of the fine pain detectors that cover the skin, and its signals reach the brain through pathways that blur location rather than sharpen it. The gut evolved to sense pressure, stretch, and chemical threat, not the precise point of injury, because a finely mapped pain was never as useful inside. So the body's deepest warnings arrive imprecise, felt, but not located, and knowing that something is wrong without a clear map of where the gut's speaking in a language of unease, rather than coordinates. The body can mislead you about where it hurts, and in matters of the gut, the deception can be startling. A problem deep in the digestive system, an inflamed organ, a trapped pocket of gas, a gallbladder in distress, may announce itself not where it lies, but somewhere else entirely, in the shoulder, the back, the chest. Physicians call this referred pain, and it follows a strange logic. The nerves carrying signals from the gut share pathways with nerves from other parts of the body, and where these signals converge on their way to the brain can mistake their true origin, projecting the pain onto the surface instead of the depths. So a trouble in the belly is felt in the shoulder blade, the body pointing in the wrong direction. This is why a serious internal problem can be missed or misread, the pain seeming to come from a place that is perfectly healthy. The gut, already vague in its warnings, can also be misplaced in them, the body's deepest distress surfacing far from where it truly began. There is something almost unsettling in this, that the body can obscure the very source of its own alarm. The warnings from the gut are not only dull and hard to locate, they can be displaced, surfacing far from their origin, so that the true source of the trouble stays hidden while the pain appears somewhere unrelated. The body sounds the alarm, but does not always reveal where the fire is. This is not deception with a purpose. It is a byproduct of how the deep internal nerves are wired, sharing pathways and converging in ways that blur the signal's beginning. Yet the effect is real and consequential. A body that warns you something is wrong while pointing you toward the wrong place. It asks for a certain humility about our own interiors. We do not have clear, direct access to what is happening deep within us. Only these imperfect, sometimes misleading signals rising from the dark. The gut knows when something is wrong. It cannot always tell you where, and sometimes it points you astray, the deepest warnings, the hardest to read. We rarely think of hunger as an alarm, yet that is exactly what it is. Strip away its familiarity, and hunger reveals itself as one of the body's oldest warning signals, a message that the resources keeping you alive are running low and must be replenished. It rises from the gut and spreads through the body, growing more insistent the longer it is ignored, until it dominates attention entirely. This is by design. A signal meant to drive a creature to find food could not afford to be ignored, so it was built to escalate, to nag, to overwhelm. The discomfort is the point. Hunger is the body refusing to let you forget that you need to eat, an alarm that grows louder until it is answered. We have made hunger so ordinary, so easily satisfied, that we forget what it is. A survival warning as fundamental as fear or pain. The emptiness you feel when a meal is late is the same ancient signal that drove your ancestors to hunt and gather and search the gut, sounding its oldest alarm, telling you that you must find food to live. Hunger does more than make you want to eat. It changes the mind. The hormone that rises when the stomach is empty, the chemical messenger that signals hunger, also reaches the brain and sharpens it, heightening attention and strengthening certain kinds of memory. Researchers studying this hormone, called ghrelin, found that it does not only drive appetite, but appears to enhance learning and focus, particularly in the search for food. There is a deep logic in this. A hungry creature needs to be at its sharpest alert to opportunity, able to remember where food was found before. So the very signal that announces hunger also sharpens the faculties needed to end it, tuning the mind for the hunt. This is why a moderate hunger can leave you feeling oddly clear and focused, the body preparing you to find what it needs. The emptiness in your gut is not only a discomfort, it is a quiet sharpening of the mind, the body, marshalling your attention and memory toward the ancient and urgent task of finding your next meal. Push hunger further past discomfort toward true deprivation, and the body does something that seems to defy expectation. Rather than dimming, it grows more alert. A body running low on food enters a heightened state, the senses sharpening attention, tightening the whole system primed and watchful. We might expect starvation to bring weakness and dullness, and in time it does. But first comes this quickening and alertness driven by need. The logic is survival at its starkest. A starving creature cannot afford to be slow or inattentive, for this is precisely the moment it most needs to find food, and most needs to avoid becoming food itself. So the body sharpens, marshalling its remaining resources into vigilance, primed to seize any chance and sense any threat. It is a desperate kind of clarity bought at a cost that cannot be paid for long, but it reveals how deeply the body's warnings are tied to survival, hunger itself becoming a spur to alertness, the empty body made watchful by the very need that threatens it, sharpened by its own hunger. For every warning to seek, there is a warning to stop, and fullness is the gut's quiet word for enough. As you eat, the gut and its hormones send signals upward telling the brain that the need is being met, that the time to stop is approaching. This signal of satisfaction is gentler than hunger, less insistent, a soft and gradual message rather than an urgent alarm. It rises slowly as the stomach fills and the gut registers the nutrients arriving, building toward the comfortable sense of having had enough. Without it, eating would have no natural end, no internal voice calling a halt. The body needs a break as much as it needs a drive, and fullness is that break, a counterweight to hunger that keeps the balance. It is one half of an ancient pair, hunger driving you toward food, and fullness drawing you away from it, the two together, keeping a creature fed but not overwhelmed. The quiet contentment that settles in after a good meal is this signal completing its work, the gut telling the mind gently that the need is met. Here is a small mystery of the body with a clear answer. The signal of fullness does not arrive the instant you have eaten enough. It takes time. A span of perhaps 20 minutes for the gut's message of satisfaction to build and reach the brain fully. In that gap lies the explanation for a common discomfort. Eat slowly and the signal can catch up, telling you to stop near the point of genuine fullness. Eat quickly and you can race past that point before the message arrives, taking in far more than you needed before your body has had the chance to say enough. The discomfort of having eaten too much is often simply this: a meal finished faster than the signal could travel. The break was on its way, but you outran it. This is why eating slowly is so often advised not as a matter of manners, but of biology, giving the gut's quiet signal the time it needs to reach you. The delay is built in, and so the speed at which you eat decides whether you heed the warning or outpace it. Even when you are deepest in sleep, beyond all awareness, the gut does not rest. Through the night, in a body gone still and silent, the digestive tract keeps moving, a slow rhythm of contractions continuing in the dark, the gut at its quiet work while you dream. This is not random twitching. It is an ordered pattern, the muscles of the gut contracting in waves that move along its length, governed by the gut's own nervous system, and its own internal clock, needing no instruction from a sleeping mind. The body's other great efforts may slow in sleep, but the gut keeps its rhythm tending to itself when you have stopped tending to anything at all. There is something quietly reassuring in this image of a part of you that never fully sleeps, that carries on its steady work through every night of your life. While you lie unconscious and unaware, the gut keeps moving, faithful to a rhythm older than your sleeping and your waking, both never quite still, never entirely at rest. There is a kind of cleaning that happens inside you, and it works best when you are not eating. Between meals and especially through the night, a slow and powerful wave moves down the length of the gut, sweeping it clean, clearing away the remnants of digestion, the debris and bacteria that linger after the work is done. Physiologists named it the migrating motor complex. Though a plainer name fits its purpose, the housekeeper wave. It arrives when the gut is empty, a patrol that cannot run while food is present, which is part of why constant eating can leave the gut feeling unsettled, the cleaning never given its chance. The wave pushes through in cycles, tidying the digestive tract, keeping it from growing stagnant or overgrown. It is the gut's quiet maintenance, its nightly sweeper self-cleaning that asks only for the pauses between meals to do its work. While you sleep and fast through the dark hours, this wave moves through you again and again, the housekeeper of the gut making its rounds, keeping the long passage clear and ready for the morning. When that quiet cleaning is disturbed, the body seems to register the loss. The housekeeper wave depends on rhythm, on the regular pauses between meals when it can do its sweeping, and when that rhythm is broken by constant grazing, by erratic eating, by nights without rest, the wave cannot run as it should. Researchers have linked disruptions of this and the gut's other rhythms to a vague sense of unwellness, a discomfort that is hard to name, the gut subtly out of order, in a way the person feels but cannot explain. The cleaning falls behind, the gut grows less settled, and a quiet wrongness rises into awareness. Much here remains uncertain, and scientists are careful about how far to draw the connections. But the pattern is suggestive that the gut depends on regularity, and that breaking its rhythms can leave the whole body feeling faintly off. The unease that comes from a disordered way of eating may be partly this: the gut's quiet maintenance thrown out of step, its housekeeping interrupted, the body registering a cleaning that did not happen as it should. You have more than one clock inside you. The brain keeps the master clock, the one tuned by light and darkness that governs your cycle of sleep and waking. But the gut keeps a clock of its own, a daily rhythm, running in its own tissues, tied to the brain's clock, yet partly independent of it. This gut clock governs the rise and fall of the digestive system through the day, preparing the gut for food at certain hours, slowing it at others, anticipating the rhythm of meals. Researchers studying these internal clocks found that the gut's timekeeper responds powerfully to when you eat, taking its cues from the schedule of food as much as from the brain above. So you carry at least two clocks, the brain set by light and the guts set largely by eating, normally kept in step with each other. When they agree, the body runs smoothly. When they fall out of agreement, trouble can follow. The gut is not simply taking orders from the brain about time. It keeps its own count of the hours tuned to the rhythm of when you feed it. The gut's clock expects food at certain hours, and when you eat against it, the body notices. Take a full meal at an hour, when the gut is tuned to rest deep in the night, when its clock has slowed everything down and digestion proceeds poorly, the gut working against its own rhythm rather than with it. The result is often a subtle wrongness, a heaviness, a sense of being out of sorts that is hard to trace to its cause. Researchers studying meal timing have found that eating at odds with the body's internal clock can disturb digestion and metabolism, the food arriving when the gut is least prepared to handle it. The body is not indifferent to when you eat, only to whether. It has expectations written into the gut's daily rhythm, and meeting them or violating them shapes how you feel. This is why a late-night meal can sit so uneasily, the gut roused to work at an hour it had readied itself to rest. Eating against your own clock leaves the body faintly wrung out of step with the rhythm it keeps without your knowing. Cross enough time zones quickly, and you feel it in your whole body, that heavy disorientation we call jet lag. We usually blame the sleeping mind, the brain's clock thrown off by the sudden shift in light. But part of the misery lives lower in the gut. When you travel fast across the world, your brain's clock and your gut's clock do not adjust at the same pace. And for a time they disagree about what hour it truly is. The brain begins resetting to the new light, while the gut, tied to its old schedule of meals, lags behind, and the two fall out of step. The digestive troubles that so often come with jet lag, the discomfort, the disturbed appetite, are partly this disagreement, the gut insisting it is one time, while the brain insists it is another. Your body is not a single clock, but several, normally synchronized, and rapid travel pulls them apart. The grogginess and unsettled stomach of a long flight are the feeling of your inner clocks arguing, the gut and the brain disagreeing for a while about when you are. Think back to a choice you made on a feeling before any reasoning had formed. A door you did not walk, through a person you trusted at once. An offer you declined for no reason you could name. The decision was already there in your body, a leaning, a pull, a quiet certainty before your mind assembled a single argument for it. This is one of the most common and least understood experiences a person can have. The sense of having decided something with the body before the thinking mind caught up. The feeling arrives first, and reason follows, often only to justify what the body already chose. Researchers studying decision-making have found that the body's signals can precede and shape our choices, the gut weighing in before the conscious deliberation begins. You have almost certainly felt this, a knowing that came from somewhere below words. It can feel like instinct, like intuition, like simply sensing the right path. Whatever we call it, it points to the same truth, that the body is part of how you decide, choosing sometimes before you know you have chosen. That uneasy sensation before a decision that turns out to be wrong, the hesitation you felt and overrode, is the body casting an early vote. Before the mind has finished weighing the options, the gut often leans, registering a wrongness or a rightness as a felt sensation, an unease that warns or a settling that approves. When you feel unsettled before a choice and proceed anyway, only to find later that the unease was right, you have overruled a vote the body cast before you. This does not mean the body is always correct, for it can be swayed by fear and bias as easily as by wisdom. But it does mean the gut is a participant in your decisions, weighing in early, sometimes seeing what reason has not yet found. The discomfort before a bad choice is worth noticing. Not obeyed blindly, but not dismissed, a signal that some part of you has already sensed something the thinking mind has missed. The body votes first, quietly, and learning to hear that early vote is part of learning to choose well. In a famous line of research, scientists gave people a gambling game with hidden rules, decks of cards, where some choices led to loss and others to gain, the pattern impossible to work out by reasoning alone. As the players learned, something quiet happened in their bodies. Before they could consciously say which decks were dangerous, their skin began to react, a faint stress response, rising as they reached toward the losing choices, the body warning them before the mind understood. Measurements showed this bodily signal, appearing in advance of conscious knowledge, the players' hands hesitating over the bad decks, while they still could not explain why. The body had learned the danger first, and was signaling it through a feeling, a wariness, arriving ahead of understanding. This study became one of the clearest pieces of evidence that the gut and body genuinely participate in judgment, sensing a bad bet before reason catches up. Researchers still debate exactly how to interpret it, holding the question open with care. But the core observation endures: the body reacting to risk before the conscious mind has worked it out. In those same studies of risk, the timing was what gave researchers pause. The body's warning did not arrive at the moment of the bad choice. It came before a measurable signal rising in the skin, and the body's responses seconds ahead of the decision, as though some part of the person had already concluded what the conscious mind was still approaching. The hand would drift toward the dangerous option, and the body would tense in quiet protest before the choice was made. This small head start, the body sensing a poor decision before it happened, suggested that our depths are not merely reacting to events, but anticipating them, reading the situation and signaling their verdict in advance. It is a strange thing to sit with, that a part of you may know your choice before you do, warning you in the seconds before you act. The signal is not loud, and it is easy to override, which is why people in the studies often chose poorly despite it. But it was there, the body leaning away from harm before the mind had decided, a warning arriving early enough to heed, if only you knew to listen. The body's quiet warnings are not a fixed gift given fully to some and denied to others. They are more like a sense that can be developed, an ability to hear your own signals that grows clearer with attention. People who practice turning inward, who pause to notice the state of their bodies, who learn the feel of their own unease and ease, tend over time to read these signals more accurately. The skill of interoception, of perceiving your inner state, can be strengthened much as a muscle strengthens with use. This matters because the gut's warnings are only useful if you can hear them, and most of us spend our lives with the volume turned low, drowning the inner signals in noise and distraction. To grow quieter, to attend to the body, is to turn that volume up, to make the warnings clearer and the guidance more available. The hunch, the felt sense, the bodily knowing can all be sharpened by practice. Your capacity to hear your own depths is not fixed. It can be cultivated patiently until the body's quiet voice becomes easier to hear. There is a cost to never listening, and the body pays it by going quiet. When the gut signals are ignored again and again, overridden, dismissed, pushed down day after day, the connection between body and awareness can weaken the warnings, growing fainter until they are hard to feel at all. The body, in a sense, learns that its messages go unheard, and the channel between sensation and awareness dims with disuse. People who spend years pushing through, overriding hunger and fatigue and unease, sometimes find they have lost touch with these signals entirely, no longer able to feel clearly when something is wrong. The inner voice did not vanish on its own. It was quieted by being constantly ignored. This is the shadow side of the body's adaptability, that a sense neglected long enough can fade. The warnings that might guide you grow faint when they are never heeded, the body eventually falling silent where it once spoke. To stop listening is, over time, to lose the ability to hear the gut's quiet voice dimming in a body that stopped paying attention. There is a particular way of losing the body's signals that comes from holding emotion at a distance. People who habitually suppress what they feel, who push down emotion as a matter of course, often find that they also lose touch with the bodily cues that emotion is built upon, since feelings arise so largely from the body's signals. The racing heart, the tightening gut, the changes in breath. A person who learns to ignore those signals can grow numb, not only to the feeling, but to the body speaking beneath it. Researchers studying emotional suppression have found it linked to a reduced awareness of internal states, the habit of not feeling spreading from the emotion to its bodily roots. The two are bound together. To shut out what the body says about fear or sadness is, in time, to shut out the body's quieter warnings as well, the same channel carrying both. This is a hidden cost of holding everything in that the practice of not feeling can dim the very sense that might warn you of danger, the suppressed body growing quiet in more ways than one. The mind forgets mercifully much of what it endures, but the body keeps its own records, and they do not fade so easily. Stress and fear leave marks in the body's systems, in the tuning of its alarm responses, in the sensitivity of the gut, in patterns that can persist long after the conscious memory has dimmed or vanished. A person may not remember a frightening time clearly, yet their body may still carry it, reacting with an old wariness to cues the mind no longer recognizes. Researchers studying the lasting effects of stress have found that the body's stress systems can be reshaped by hard experience, holding a kind of memory in their very calibration. This is why a feeling can rise without an apparent cause, the body responding to an echo the mind has lost. The record lives below recollection in the responses themselves, rather than in remembered scenes. The body remembers what the mind forgets, keeping a quiet account of what you have been through, sometimes warning you still on the basis of dangers long past carried in the body's own deep memory. Among the places the body stores its old fears, the gut is one of the most faithful. A frightening or painful experience can leave the gut more sensitive, more easily roused to unease, its alarm set to a finer trigger that persists long after the memory itself has gone quiet. Researchers studying the gut have found that early or severe stress can lastingly change its sensitivity. The gut carrying forward a wariness from experiences the conscious mind may no longer hold. So a person might feel their stomach tighten in a situation that seems harmless, the gut reacting to a resemblance to old danger that they cannot consciously recall. The fear has settled into the body's depths, living on in the gut's readiness to alarm. This can be hard to understand from the outside, an unease that seems to come from nowhere, when in fact it comes from somewhere very old, a fear that found a home in the gut and stayed. The body's deepest warning system can be marked by the past, carrying old fear forward long after the story behind it has faded from memory. If the body can frighten the mind, it can also soothe it, and this is one of the most useful truths a person can know. Because the conversation between gut and brain runs in both directions, a body that is calmed sends signals of safety upward, and a frightened mind can be quieted from below. When you slow the body, deliberately easing its tension and steadying its rhythms, the brain receives these signals of calm and begins in response to settle. This is why so many ways of finding peace work through the body rather than the mind, through breath and stillness and slow movement, reaching the frightened mind by way of the calmed body. You cannot always argue yourself out of fear, but you can sometimes settle your body and let the settling rise. The line that carries alarm from gut to brain also carries reassurance, and the body soothed can become a source of calm rather than a source of dread. To quiet the body is in time to quiet the mind, the peace traveling upward along the very path the fear once took. Of all the ways to calm the body, one is always with you, costs nothing, and works through the very nerve at the center of this whole conversation. Slow, deliberate breathing reaches directly to the vagus nerve, the wandering cable between gut and brain, and engages the branch of the nervous system responsible for rest and calm. When you breathe slowly, especially when the exhale is long and unhurried, you stimulate the vagus nerve in a way that settles the heart, eases the gut, and signals the whole body toward peace. Researchers studying breath and the nervous system have found that slow breathing can measurably shift the body away from its alarm state and toward calm working through this ancient nerve. This is why the instinct to take a deep breath in a hard moment is so sound a folk wisdom that turns out to rest on real biology. The breath is a handle on the body's calm, one you can reach for at any time. Through the simple act of breathing slowly, You can speak directly to the nerve that governs your alarm and ask the body gently to stand down. There is a quiet symmetry at the heart of the wandering nerve. The vagus, the great cable that carries the gut's alarms upward and helps rouse the body in fear, is the very same nerve that carries the signal to rest and recover. It serves both states alarm and calm threat and peace, the single line along which the body is both warned and soothed. When danger passes, it is largely the vagus that brings the body back down, slowing the racing heart, returning blood to the gut, restoring the slow work of digestion and repair. The nerve that helped you brace is the nerve that helps you release. This is a deep and reassuring fact about how you are built. The same channel that delivers dread also delivers calm, the body's alarm and its peace traveling the same road. To understand the vagus is to see that warning and rest are not opposites housed in different systems, but two functions of one nerve. The body able to alarm itself and to settle itself along the very same path, balanced between vigilance and rest. It can begin with one breath. In a moment of rising fear, a single slow, deep breath drawn in, unhurried, and let out long can start to turn the body from alarm toward calm, the first nudge along the path back to peace. This is not a matter of belief or willpower. It is physiology. That one deliberate breath engages the vagus nerve and the body's calming branch, sending the first signal that the danger may be passing, that it is safe to begin standing down. One breath rarely undoes fear completely, but it can break its momentum, interrupting the spiral of alarm and opening a small space of calm into which more breaths can follow. There is real power in this smallness, that the vast machinery of fear can be reached and gently turned by something as simple and available as a single breath. When the body floods with dread, you are not helpless before it. You hold always the means to begin the turn. One slow breath that speaks to the deepest parts of you and asks them quietly to ease. For all its ancient wisdom, the gut feeling is not always right, and this is among the most important things to understand about it. The body's warnings can be wise, sensing patterns and dangers the mind has missed. They can also be wrong, fired by old fears, shaped by bias, alarmed at threats that are not real. The gut does not distinguish carefully between a true danger and a false one, and so its feelings, however vivid, are not proof. To treat every gut feeling as infallible is its own kind of error, trusting a signal that can mislead as readily as it can guide. The honest view holds both truths at once, that the body's warnings are valuable and that they are fallible, worth heeding and worth questioning. Knowing this matters because it is the difference between using your intuition and being ruled by it. The gut feeling deserves a seat at the table of your judgment, but not the final word. Its strength is real, and so are its errors, and wisdom lies in respecting the signal without surrendering to it. Here is the trap hidden inside trusting the gut. Not every feeling that rises from the body is wisdom. Bias and fear can wear the same clothes as intuition, producing a strong gut feeling that is not insight at all, but prejudice or anxiety, or a learned fear that no longer fits. The body cannot tell you which is which. A feeling of wrongness about a person may be a genuine reading of danger, or it may be a bias absorbed long ago, and both arrive as the same bodily unease. This is why the gut feeling, for all its value, must be held with care. The very strength that makes intuition useful, its immediacy, its conviction, is also what makes bias dangerous when it disguises itself as intuition. A prejudice felt in the gut feels exactly as true as a real insight felt in the gut. Learning to tell them apart is some of the hardest and most important work a person can do, because the body offers no label presenting wisdom and bias in the very same feeling, leaving it to you to discern which voice is truly speaking. So how should a thoughtful person treat the warnings of the body? Not by obeying them blindly, and not by dismissing them outright, but by a third path, noticing the feeling, then questioning it. The wisest use of a gut feeling begins with attention, taking the signal seriously, registering that some part of you has sensed something. Then comes the questioning, asking where the feeling comes from, whether it reflects real insight or old fear, whether the evidence supports it or contradicts it. This way honors the body's wisdom without surrendering judgment to it, letting the gut feeling inform the mind rather than overrule it. The feeling becomes a piece of evidence, valued but examined, a contribution to your thinking rather than a command. This is harder than simply trusting or simply ignoring, requiring you to hold the feeling and your reason together, weighing both. But it is the path that draws on the body's genuine gifts, while guarding against its genuine errors. Notice the gut feeling. Take it seriously. Then ask whether it is right. In that pause between noticing and acting lies the better part of wisdom. To understand the gut's warnings fully, you have to remember when they were made. This whole system, the alarms, the dread, the racing heart and clenching gut, was shaped over millions of years in a world utterly unlike the one you live in now. It was built for a life of physical dangers and immediate threats of predators and rivals and scarce food. A world where the warnings it produced fit the dangers at hand. That world is gone, but the system remains essentially unchanged, carried in your body into a life it was never designed for. This is the root of so much of the trouble with our modern alarms, that they were calibrated for one kind of existence and are now living in another. The body cannot tell that the world has changed. It goes on producing warnings tuned to ancient dangers, firing in a life full of threats it cannot understand. To know this is to see your own fears more clearly, recognizing in them the echo of an older world, a survival system doing faithful work in a setting its makers could never have imagined. Once you grasp that the body's alarms were built for an ancient world, a great deal about modern anxiety begins to make sense. So many of the warnings we feel now fire at things that cannot truly harm us, the body sounding ancient alarms at distinctly modern situations. A difficult email triggers the same response as a predator. A social slight rouses the body as if to a physical attack. A number on a screen, a looming deadline, a moment of public attention, and the gut clenches the heart, races the full machinery of survival, engages against a threat that poses no danger to life or limb. The body cannot tell the difference. It only knows the feeling of threat, and it responds as it always has, with an alarm meant for dangers that could kill. This mismatch lies behind much of the chronic anxiety of modern life. A survival system firing constantly at threats. It was never meant to face alarms that no longer fit the world that triggers them. Knowing this does not silence the alarms, but it can change how you hold them, recognizing the false warning for what it is. Given all this, that the body's warnings can be wise or mistaken, that they fire at real dangers and false ones alike, a certain task falls to every person. You must learn which of your signals to trust. This is not a problem to be solved once, but an ongoing part of living in a body, the lifelong work of coming to know your own alarms, which ones tend to be right and which tend to mislead, when to heed the gut and when to question it. No one is born knowing this. It is learned slowly through attention and experience, through noticing when the body was right and when it was wrong, gradually building a wiser relationship with your own depths. To live in a body is to live with a stream of signals, some true, some false, all felt with the same conviction, making sense of them, learning their patterns, coming to trust the trustworthy and doubt the deceptive is simply part of what it means to inhabit a human body. It is a task that belongs to everyone, never finished the quiet, ongoing work of learning to read yourself. The bond between the gut and the mind does not begin in childhood or even at birth. It is there earlier, forming in the womb. The gut and the nervous system developing together, their connection laid down before a child has drawn a single breath. From the earliest stages, the systems that will one day carry the body's warnings are already being built. The wiring between gut and brain established before there is any world to warn against. This means the gut feeling is not something learned and added later. It is foundational, woven into us from before our beginning, part of the body's deepest architecture. We come into the world already equipped with this ancient channel between belly and brain, already capable of the bodily knowing that will guide and trouble us all our lives. There is something humbling in this, that before you could see or think or remember, the connection that produces your gut feelings was already forming within you. It is among the oldest parts of you, older than memory, older than your first breath, present from before you were fully you. What happens to us early can echo for a lifetime, and the gut is one of the places that echo lives. The stresses a child experiences in their earliest years before memory takes hold can shape the sensitivity of the gut for the rest of their life, tuning its alarm to a finer or coarser trigger. Researchers studying early life stress have found that hardship in those formative years can lastingly affect the gut, leaving it more reactive, more easily roused to unease the calibration of its warnings, set in part by experiences person will never consciously recall. This is a sobering thought, that the gut you carry as an adult was shaped partly by a childhood you cannot remember, your alarm system tuned by your earliest days. It is also a reminder of how deeply early care matters, reaching even into the body's hidden warning systems. The sensitivity of your gut, the readiness with which it sounds its alarms, may carry the imprint of your beginning, a lifelong sensitivity, shaped by what happened before you could remember it happening at all. If early stress can make the gut more reactive, then early safety can do the opposite, and this is the gentler half of the same truth. Comfort and security in childhood, the steady presence of care, the felt sense of safety, quietly tune the body's alarm system toward calm, helping to set the gut's warnings at a measured and well-calibrated level. A child who grows in safety is, in a sense, having their nervous system tuned by that safety, their body learning that the world is not a constant threat, their alarms calibrated by reassurance rather than fear. Researchers studying early development have found that secure, nurturing care supports healthier regulation of the body's stress responses, the calm of childhood reaching into the body's deepest systems. This is one of the quiet gifts that good care gives, shaping not only a child's heart and mind, but the very tuning of their bodily alarms. The safety you knew early or did not lives on in how readily your body sounds its warnings, the comfort of childhood settling gently into the calibration of the gut. We speak often of how the body holds on to fear, the gut carrying old dangers forward through life. But the same depth of memory holds the opposite, for the gut remembers care as surely as it remembers threat. The safety, the comfort, the steady kindness a person has known can settle into the body's systems just as fear does, leaving the gut calmer, its alarms gentler, carrying forward not danger but reassurance. The body's memory is not only a record of harm, it is also a record of being cared for, the good held alongside the bad, in the deep calibration of the nervous system. This matters because it means the body's tuning is not only a story of wounds, but also of healing, not only of what hurt us, but of what held us. The gut carries both. The care you have received, the safety you have known, lives in your body as truly as any fear, shaping your depths toward calm. The body remembers tenderness, keeping its quiet record of every time it was kept safe. Look across the world's languages and you find a strange agreement. People everywhere, in cultures with no contact between them, reach for the belly to describe their deepest feelings, and their truest knowing. We speak of a gut feeling of knowing something in our gut, of a decision made from the gut, and similar phrases appear across wildly different tongues and traditions. The belly named again and again as the seat of deep feeling and instinct. This is not a borrowing passed from one culture to another. It arose independently in many places, a shared human instinct to locate the deepest knowing, not in the head and not only in the heart but in the gut. Across cultures separated by oceans and centuries, people arrived at the same intuition, that something essential is felt in the belly. Such widespread agreement is striking, and it points towards something real. Beneath the words, a common human experience of feeling our deepest truths in the gut, recognized everywhere, named everywhere, a universal instinct written into how we speak of what we most deeply know. There is a reason the language of the gut feels so natural, so right in so many tongues. When people want to express the deepest kind of knowing, the conviction that runs below reason, they reach instinctively for the gut, across cultures and languages, as though the body itself were guiding the words. We do not say we know something in our elbow or our knee, we say we know it in our gut. And the phrase carries a weight that no other would, pointing at a knowing deeper than thought. This shared reaching toward the gut, in language after language, suggests that the metaphor is not arbitrary at all, but rooted in genuine experience, the body actually being where this kind of knowing is felt. The words follow the feeling. People say they know things in their gut because that is, in some real sense, where they feel themselves knowing. Language everywhere bends toward the belly to name our deepest certainties, not by chance or fashion, but because the body's truth pressed itself into our words. The gut, speaking through the language we use to describe what we most surely know. When so many cultures independently locate deep knowing in the gut, it begins to seem like more than coincidence. The shared instinct arising everywhere hints at something true beneath the metaphor, a real bodily basis for the figure of speech. And indeed, that is exactly what the science has been uncovering. That the gut feeling is not merely a poetic way of speaking, but a description of genuine events in the body, the very connection between gut and brain that produces real sensations of knowing and warning. The metaphor everyone reached for turns out to rest on biology. People across the world spoke of knowing things in their gut, because the gut truly participates in how we feel and sense, and decide the language pointing all along at something real. This is a quiet vindication of an ancient intuition, that the wisdom embedded in our common speech was tracking a truth our science is only now confirming. The shared instinct of humanity, written into its languages, was right. Beneath the metaphor lies a real connection, the gut feeling grounded not in figure of speech, but in the actual workings of the body. Step back far enough, and a deep truth comes into view. Long before any creature could reason, before there was anything we would call a mind, bodies already knew how to sense danger and respond to it. The gut's warnings, the recoil from threat, the alarm that readies a creature to fight or flee, are far older than thought. Present in simple animals that lived and died countless ages before reason appeared. The body's wisdom came first. The capacity to think about danger, to reason and plan and explain, arrived late, built atop a foundation of bodily knowing that had already kept life going for a very long time. This is the proper order of things: the body, the ancient elder, and the reasoning mind, the recent arrival. Your gut feelings draw on this deep inheritance, a way of knowing that predates thought by an almost unimaginable span. When you sense danger in your body before your mind can name it, you are using a faculty older than reason itself, the body knowing as it has always known long before the mind learned to think. Consider for a moment what every gut feeling actually carries: The warnings you feel today did not begin with you. They were shaped and passed down through an unbroken line of ancestors, each one having survived long enough to carry the system forward, each having heeded in their own moment the body's alarms well enough to live and pass them on. Every warning you feel is an inheritance from that vast and ancient lineage, the accumulated survival of countless lives, refined across more generations than the mind can hold. The unease in your gut, the dread, the quiet sense that something is wrong, all of it descends from those who felt such things, trusted them when it mattered and lived. You are the present holder of a system, tested across an almost endless succession of lives, each link in the chain, a survivor. When your body warns you, it warns you with the gathered wisdom of all who came before, a faculty handed down through every ancestor who ever lived to pass it on. You carry their survival in your gut, an inheritance written into the very warnings you feel. So when you turn your attention inward and listen to what your body is telling you, understand what you are actually doing. You are hearing a voice far older than thought, older than language, older than the reasoning self you take yourself to be. The body's knowing predates all of that, by an immensity of time reaching back through your ancestry, and beyond it into the deep history of life itself. To attend to the gut feeling is to listen to something ancient speaking through you, a way of sensing the world that existed long before minds did. This is why these signals can feel so deep, so certain, so hard to put into words, because they come from a part of you that never spoke in words to begin with. When you grow quiet and turn toward the body, you are tuning in to the oldest voice you carry. It does not always speak truly, and it is not always wise, but it is ancient, and it is yours, a voice far older than thought, still speaking, if you will only learn to listen. After everything, it is worth saying plainly what the gut feeling is and is not. It is not magic. It is not a mystical sixth sense or a message from beyond the body. It is biology, real and explicable, the workings of nerves and chemistry and ancient circuitry that science is steadily coming to understand. And yet to call it biology is not to diminish it, for this biology is profound. A system of extraordinary depth and antiquity, worth genuine respect. The quiet signal in your gut deserves neither dismissal as superstition, nor worship as something supernatural, but something better, an honest respect for what it truly is. It is the body sensing, judging, and warning through means we can study and explain, and it is no less remarkable for being explicable. To respect the gut feeling rightly is to hold it as biology, real and fallible, and deep, neither magic to be revered nor nonsense to be ignored. The signal is genuine, its workings are physical, and understanding it as biology, far from emptying it of meaning, lets us see at last how quietly extraordinary it really is. We have traveled a long way through the body's hidden wisdom, and it returns in the end to something close and quiet. Before you knew you had a gut, before you could name a single feeling, before you understood anything about yourself at all, your body was already watching over you. From your earliest moments it was sensing, judging, warning, keeping you safe through means you would never see and rarely feel. It has gone on doing this every day of your life, beneath your awareness, asking nothing, the steady guardian you almost never thank. The gut feelings, the dread, the quiet alarms are all part of this long and faithful watch. A body that has been keeping you safe since before you knew it was there. Perhaps the deepest response to all of this is simply to notice it, to feel a quiet gratitude for the silent vigilance you have always carried, and to listen a little more closely to the body that has been speaking to you all along, watching over you, as it always has from before you knew it was there. Thank you for spending this time here with me. Until next time, good night.